Get started here. Thank you all for attending the technical roundtable. Just going to show of hands, how many people attended the roundtable from last year? Wow, okay, so a lot of people. I actually was not the chair of the roundtable last year. I think last year was Mike Pennington. Mike will be joining us a bit later. And the format for this is pretty much wide open, this could go any number of ways. Hopefully we can get some good conversations going. People can talk about some of the different issues that they're experiencing with IT. I think that one of the biggest things that we, as the CEN would like to hear about is, what are the things that you guys really, what are some services that you guys think that you would like to see in the future, whether they be deployed by CEN or deployed by, any one of the VARs that we partner with. What are the issues that you're experiencing? What are the problems with the services that you're seeing, and maybe some of the trends that you're seeing in your environments? But just to get a show of hands, so we know the makeup of the audience, how many here are working K-12? So a good majority. How many here work in higher ed? Okay, so a lot of education. Are there any private businesses? Okay. And are there any municipalities? Okay. So that actually follows our makeup of our member base pretty accurately, for the most part. I guess that's a good question. We're the Connecticut Education Network, and I think that really the heart and soul of what we want to do is serve the public good for education and research. That being said, I think that there is benefit overall to having more governments attached to us, potentially hospitals, other people that benefit the public good as a whole. But I think that's our heart as the educational network, and I think that's where we're going to be concentrating our efforts. I think one of the biggest differentiators between us and other networks is our connections to internet too, which in K-12 it may not be that important to you, but for higher education, people doing research, those connections are pretty important. And I know that CCAT, Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology, they've actually leveraged some of those connections. Greg, I think you're still using a connection down in Florida. Yeah. So I mean, there's things that maybe even people here are not even aware of. Like, you guys can connect to, really a virtual Ethernet circuit from here to any other member connected to internet too. If you can imagine that. For research, that might be really, really interesting to enable basically two laboratories kind of be connected between each other. So that's where our heart and soul is. I mean, if there are other intentions, I'm not aware of those from a technical standpoint. But that's a good question. So from, I guess we could start with a K-12. How many people here utilize the CEN web filtering? Okay. And how many people here have their own iBoss web filtering? Okay. How many people here, if you're willing to admit it, do something other than iBoss web filtering? Okay. So how many, okay. And out of those people, how many people used to use iBoss and switched over to this new thing that's not iBoss recently? Okay. So I guess that's good. It means that people are happy, at least in this room, with iBoss. I'm sure there's room for improvement. we're always pushing the vendors to improve their functionality, and I think we sent a clear message from our days with TrustWave that we weren't going to accept the status quo of substandard service. So I was kind of curious if people wouldn't mind talking about some of the gripes they've had with iBoss, whether it be our cloud service or their own deployment. If anyone's willing to, I can certainly think of a few. So yeah.
Well, one of the things we're struggling with as a district is that as we move more and more towards cloud services, in our case we use Office 365, our bandwidth is increasing, and our main issue is we're at a point where the iBoss is sort of becoming the bottleneck of our network, where our pipe to the CEN is getting bigger, which you still have 1 gig bottleneck that all the traffic has to go through. So I just didn't know what other people are doing as far as options with that issue.
Has anyone experienced a similar issue with bottlenecking on their iBoss, or none that they're willing to admit? It's not uncommon to hear about bottlenecks in security appliances. I mean, this was the whole reason why something called the Science DMZ project in the federal government came about, was because security appliances have a tendency to slow down the important stuff. I can tell you with our cloud service offering, we've scaled it out to handle a very high level of load. I think at this point we're able to handle between 30 and 40 gigs, and we're scheduled actually to upgrade that even further. Even though we're only seeing about 13, 14 gigs of traffic through our cloud service right now, we've had to upgrade it just because of the fact that we need to account for DDoS attacks, which is unfortunate because, it's a lot of resources put into something that may usually are not used. But yeah, that's a good question, and I'd be interested to know what Anthony Bruno from iBoss has to say. Oh, you did? Okay. Okay.
Did it have 1 to 10? Like you just went 1 gig straight to 10 gig? Is that what you
Yeah, I think our 10 gig appliances handle, they're rated for 3 gigabits per second apiece. So, we have multiple ones stacked, basically. So, I mean, from what I understand on their development platform, they're making a lot of changes on the back end of that to improve the speeds of their appliances. But yeah, certainly cloud services, it seems that there's a lot of people. I mean, is there anyone here who's not using, Google Apps for domains or Outlook 365, one of those two? Is there anyone who still houses their own email system in-house? Okay. So, and because of that, is it mainly a security reasons, or is there other, like, political reasons?
Political.
Some of it just has to do with our students are on Google Apps. We currently host Exchange for faculty and staff. We're considering moving to a hybrid environment eventually, but it's hard for me sometimes to grasp the ever-changing nuances of Office 365's agreements.
Yeah.
They change stuff, and especially as I try to dive into some of the agreements, there's ever-shifting point people who provide different information.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really feel strong and confident that if we shift data permanently out there, it'll remain under a certain agreement for exact time.
So one of the things that we've heard loud and clear from our members is that, especially the larger institutions, higher ed and research, is that they want direct connections, or as close as they can get to direct connections into cloud services, whether it be Amazon, Microsoft Azure, not so much Google. We haven't really heard much about that. Yeah, at least in terms of their whatever they call their elastic computing platform equivalent. But But you know, we've heard that loud and clear. As Scott mentioned, we are actively in the process of building into New York City. You know, once there, we'll have a point of presence to connect directly into Amazon, and we'll be able to offer, you know, direct. We could offer direct 1 gig circuits up to 10 gig, or even potentially 100 gig, you know, if you're willing to invest in that. But you know, we've heard that loud and clear, and that's definitely something. I mean, we did have an outage earlier in the actually fairly recent with Internet 2, and it affected Google. And boy, if Google goes down, you might as well say the whole internet is down. I mean, that's how important it is. And it showed us basically, you know, hey, we can't just rely on Internet 2. We can't just rely on CenturyLink. We can't, you know, we need to be peering directly with these organizations, just in case we have a problem with our upstreams, that we have some resiliency. No, I mean, in the case of the, yeah. And I think that's still pretty common. I read some statistic a while ago that said 90% of outages were due to misconfiguration. I think there was a recent fiber issue with.
Yeah, the Internet 2 one, the big one was because of someone went into a manhole and just like totally.
Oh, so that was a different one. Yeah. So that one we had an outage.
Malicious, like someone.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But that's, so that one our network was able to reconverge around that. I mean, relatively quickly, within a minute. No, there was an issue where Internet 2 pushed out a change to their software-defined networking. Yeah, and it caused an issue. And you know, boy, we let them know, and a lot of other members let them know that it's not acceptable. I mean, they may have had their grassroots in research and education, but nowadays people are depending on Internet 2 for, you know, commercial services, and they expect it to be up. But just the same, you know, we're not going to rely on their, you know, intentions of improving service. We're going to be doing our own thing, because that's necessary, right? So I guess, you know, in terms of web filtering and Google and all that good stuff, I know a lot of people we've seen using Google Apps for education, and especially organizations using Chromebooks. They've been experiencing, in some cases, connectivity issues. And, you know, many times they call us, I mean, you know, which is good. You know, we want to understand the problem, even, you know, and you know, maybe sometimes it's something, you know, on our network, but you know, what we've heard is that, so with a Chromebook, when you open up a connection to Google Apps, it could be opening up 100 simultaneous TCP connections in the background in UDP. Yeah. So, you know, if you have a firewall, like if you have a small address range and you have one public IP address on the outside of that firewall, that's basically only 65,000 ports that you have available to multiplex on. And those might be used up pretty quickly if you have a large amount of students in your network. I was kind of curious to know if anyone has seen issues like that. Okay. And well,
a lot of people I've dealt with over this past year, they call with issues, and I say, how many NAT pools or PAT pools do you have? Oh, we have one for one IP. I'm like, have you checked the exhaustion of that? It's like, oh no, it's fine. It's using 65,000 ports. I'm like, dude, that's all your ports. Yeah. Like, and then they open up a second external IP, and oh, everything's beautiful and fixed again. So I'm like, just keep an eye on your port exhaustion.
Yeah, we have to pretty much give each of our wireless subnets its own external address.
Yeah, see, if you have enough, that's what we tell people. Try to separate as much as possible, especially at least your BYOD. Get your BYOD off of your main gateway, because that's where most of these DDoSes come from. And so if they're hitting that IP for BYOD and you're sharing it with your gateway for everyone else, that's why you can blow it out of the water. Yeah, how big's your range? Last one? Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, start separating them. I don't know, is Danbury? He separated out all all of his schools. So his high school, his elementaries are all on different IPs because he gets the asked every single day.
That's interesting, because like we'll have a school with like, 400 kids taking a test, at the same time, and every once in a while, they'll get kicked out for, it's kind of like.
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's depending on how many Chromebooks are open.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
it seems
exactly.
to be, like there's more
So
and
we
more.
disable the filtering and the bypass, and the bypass is working.
For a while.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
that's the
silly.
thing.
It's
Yeah,
just like
Yeah, does all of your internet come out of one IP?
Yes.
Yeah, you're gonna wanna go back to the drawing board and start separating that out a little. That's definitely gonna help you with future problems. I mean, if you do it now, then you're set for the future, rather than what people are seeing. Yeah.
Is there any, oh, go ahead, sorry.
And is that like port saturation, exhaustion of the port address translation tools, is that like something that you see specifically with Chromebooks, you see other devices?
We do see other devices, definitely, any BYOD, it's just Chromebooks are the ones notoriously for having like 100 to 300 connections per,
Just to log on. Yeah.
per Chromebook. And so some of these schools, I know, like have 1,000 Chromebooks times 300 connections, it adds up, but then people bring in iPads, they take 20, 30, people bring in their phones, 10, 20, laptops, everything. So it's not just the Chromebooks, it's pretty much because of BYOD that people are seeing these things they've never seen before. People are saying, it was fine last year. I'm like, how many Chromebooks did you have last year? 100, how many this year? 500.
Yeah.
There you go. You're probably losing some also X-Slate memory or whatever it's called. A lot of people have been upgrading their memory in their firewalls because those tables are getting full, and so they put more memory in, and it helps the problem.
Greg, do you provide firewall services? You don't, okay. Is that something out of curiosity, are you guys looking potentially? Yeah, yeah. So, I guess to go back for wireless, I mean, people are probably using Aruba, Cisco Meraki, Fortinet. Any other big vendors that people are using for wireless that they want? Ruckus, okay. Okay.
We're about to implement a big point-to-point solution in a couple of buildings.
We had a Chromebook issue last Friday, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But we called them and they just had us downgrade the version of Chromebook to back one.
So how's that level? You dealt directly with Google?
I didn't, I was out last week, but my boss does, yes.
Okay. Is anyone else had to deal directly with Google out of curiosity?
Yeah, and
Yeah, great.
Oh, good. Okay.
they actually get a number picked up in the first, couple of minutes, 70 people.
Interesting.
I wish some of the other companies said that, but
Good. Is anyone using IPv6 here? Okay.
we still have it. I talked to Ralph.
Yeah, okay.
Is anyone using IPv6 for a production service?
We are.
Real text line are
Okay.
typically.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
No, no. But let me, I went to a talk this past year. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with a company called Infoblox. They do IP address management, DNS. And they had a authority talk about IPv6, and his title was IPv6 Evangelist. And I remember in the talk, there was someone who asked the question, and maybe they were a bit of a heckler, but their question was, why does IPv6 need an evangelist? And I think it was a legitimate question. There's not a lot of adoption by the end user. Well, let me retract that. I don't think there's a lot of adoption at the IT manager level for IPv6. The end users are adopting IPv6 without any knowledge of what's happening. And when you're on your mobile device, when you connect to your cellular network, many times that's done purely over IPv6,
Especially if you have an iPhone.
right?
So Apple just released that, their newest version, they're gonna try to basically go IP6 only. And any
Well-
app needs to support it, right, pretty much.
So that, I don't think that's technically true. I mean, so what Apple basically said was any developer who wants to create an app for the iPhone, they can no longer use code that specifically references IPv4. They have to use an agnostic API that basically doesn't care whether it's IPv4 or IPv6, right? So I think that's a great step by Apple, and it's going to be important. I think IPv6, you are going to see it take off. I mean, my personal opinion, you're going to see a big killer app using IPv6, and that'll be the driver. I don't know when that's going to happen. But until that does happen, people will continue to use IPv4.
Well, I mean, if you've got enough external addresses, what's our incentive to?
Right. So I know there was one higher ed who only had a /24 addressing, and to a K-12 that may seem like a lot, but when you have to support a couple thousand students, it's not enough. And the problem they ran into, I think, was in regards to supporting Xbox or PS4 services as one of those gaming systems, and that just doesn't work well with those, I guess. And so they actually deployed IPv6 and had some good success with it. So I guess for them, that was the driving app. But we've seen some cases people deploy it and then maybe they turn up a web server. But maybe it's the lack of functionality in the security equipment. I know a lot of our members still don't have the most advanced firewalls. I don't think that's atypical of any organization, frankly. But I mean, we've often run into issues when we went out to bid for the web filtering, for example, with iBoss. IPv6 was a requirement, and it's supported, but there's a couple little gotchas. Like when you view the logs of a web filter, the formatting gets a little screwed up when you're dealing with a huge IPv6 address. So, there's little gotchas with that, and I don't think that's helping anyone. But we purchased additional IPv4 space, leasing it actually at the moment, but we're not going to be forcing anyone to use IPv6. I think if anything, depending on the next services we go to target, we started a pilot for wireless services in libraries, and that might be an interesting thing to do an IPv6 only deployment directly to the customer and see how that works out. But no, I mean IPv4 is here to stay for the future. Right, unless you're a big carrier.
T-Mobile was telling us one time we went to that all of their phones, if you're on T-Mobile, are all IPv6. You just have no idea because they do something called IPv4, V6, XLAT and stuff. So, and this was years ago that they did this. So if you have a T-Mobile phone, you're IPv6. They've not had to use IPv4 in those years. They told us, which I thought.
Yeah, their entire network actually, I believe, is IPv6 only.
Yeah.
Because it was easier at that scale for them to just remove that IPv4 component and not even have to worry about supporting it than to support multiple protocols. For us, it's really not a lot to support. We just turn it on our routers and it, transits the traffic. The problem is that we don't get a lot of interest in IPv6, and as a result, we just don't have a huge amount of success stories to say about it. But
Mystic Aquarium just reached out to us this week, and they want an IPv6 block because they're going to stop using multicast and do something with IPv6 with their partners, which I found pretty interesting.
yeah.
So that should be really fun.
Multicast, I can say, is pretty much dead on our network. I think we only have one Mystic Aquarium, I'm sorry.
Did you?
Sophia?
Stuff like that?
No, I was going to say, if you wanted to drive it, that'd be something. I have a little list of
Yeah, that's that's tough because we definitely we like to support, we like to work with our members to support interesting services. I guess it's tough for us to officially support something, you know, when you call up and you expect that you're going to have this SLA that you're going to call or knock, and if you have an issue, it's resolved within a certain amount of time. It's pretty much impossible to do that now with multicast because we don't deal with any issues on it because there's no customers using it anymore. But any new technologies, you know, that you're interested in, you know, please let us know. Any like wish lists that people, you know, want to talk about, or yeah?
Just a question regarding off-site data centers. Do you guys have any solutions right now, or offerings, or plan for any offerings for disaster recovery?
Yeah. So Greg, you guys are in Cervalis, right? Yeah. Cirrus One, sorry.
Yeah, we have Cirrus One in Norwalk. We have Safe Harbor in Springfield. It's old Armory, right? That one that's
Yes.
up there,
Yeah. It's now a light tower networks.
Yeah, we have space in both that you can rent through, you know, our business side if you're looking for DR space.
Is it cheaper going for you guys compared to going outside? Or
I
is it
think
not?
we do maybe some type of discount.
We get a discount. I mean, is it cheaper than going in the cloud directly?
I mean, by going ourselves and just reaching out
So the
ourselves.
same, I think it would be
Yeah.
cheaper through us.
Okay.
You could be in the Tesla. Just check.
Yeah.
And who would be the person to contact regarding that?
So it's
Follow-up.
Paul Tarsa.
Paul
Yeah.
Tarsa, P-A-U-L-T-A-R-S-A. Yeah, he can, I just had a meeting with Southern this week, because they're interested in one of those two sites.
I thought the safe harbor, though, zoning and safe harbor Springfield incentives, I mean, I know we ran out of our support and then it was gonna cost us, it was gonna cost more money. We ended up moving to safe harbor.
Yeah.
I think that my suggestion is it's probably cheaper, but I would definitely compare it.
Yeah, Cervalis is.
No offense to you guys.
Serious One, I should say, is cheaper than Safe Harbor in general, and the facilities are outstanding. It's the most amazing data. They have 100% uptime. They've
Which
never
place
had
is that?
That's one in Norwalk.
Okay.
Sears One.
Only scary thing is that's really close. Really Canaan.
Oh, so you want some diversity? Yeah.
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 So,
They do have other data centers too.
Okay.
Not in Connecticut. Right.
Yeah.
CEN sponsored a session with VMware about their services with New York. And
Yep.
and they
Yes.
Yeah, once we get to New York, we'll be able to peer with them, and then basically have a direct connection to the VMware cloud if you want to do, VMware backups or, any like vMotion across the
I think it's
cloud.
VMware Air. Is that?
Well, there was two products they were talking about, and one was DR only, and one was sort of a shared data center model.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the plans too, getting into New York, so we can peer with them and be able to offer that.
Because their DR pricing wasn't bad.
Yeah, I remember that definitely is something I'm really looking forward to connecting. As soon as we're in New York, that'll be definitely one of the connections we turn up because we have demand right now by customers. They want that. They want those connections. So.
Well, on that note, I mean, we were talking about Amazon before, so, I mean, because that's something as we're looking at our Amazon presence, we don't have the need for yet. They want to sell it to you, you have to buy that direct connection. Just an idea, logistically, do you know how it works? I mean, is it something we would kind of purchase through CEN, and we have service that we could get through? Do you have any ideas yet on how that might work out?
We're still working on that, unfortunately, and we're running into the same problems I think that other people face when they try and interface with Amazon and Microsoft directly, is that you're being connected to some salesperson that doesn't have a full understanding of what you want. We have contacts in Amazon through Nanog, which is where those peerings happen. Once we actually get into New York City, we'll be able to give you a lot more detail on that, and we will.
It'll be straight L2, straight from your handout, basically straight to Amazon.
So that's for Amazon. Yeah, it would be a direct connection. The stumbling block will be if you truly want a dedicated 1 or 10 gig circuit directly connected into Amazon, there's a cross-connection fee that has to happen between our equipment and their equipment. And, you know, that's where people, you know, like that, you know. But we'll work through this. Out of curiosity, do you know what kind of traffic levels you think you might see? Or?
Huh?
You said nothing really that you're doing yet.
No, not yet, and we're just kind of dipping
Exploring,
ourselves into
yeah.
the end of it. So we have a specific project now that's gonna reside entirely out there, but you know how these things go, and if that's successful, it'll become like, hey, why don't we do this? Hey,
Right,
why don't we do this?
exactly.
So I'm just sort of trying to get a sense of it. Right now, I don't think it's gonna be very, very intense, but things like that are way changing on a dime, so I just wanted to kind of understand it.
So Mark, we had AWS in last week, Yale University.
Okay.
And it's not, we thought it was a layer 2 direct connect, it's not. It's that you have to pair with a BGP pair on layer 2. So you need a layer 3 device. We thought it was just a direct layer 2 link. They said absolutely not, that's not what you're going to get from them.
That's probably the Internet
So-
2 stuff. Internet 2 offers L2 VPN from Amazon, but it's probably through some type
So
of.
can you clarify just a little bit on that?
So what'll happen is, if you set up a VPC on their end, you're going to basically get a VLAN number. That VLAN number now has to tie, it's going to BGP pair with a layer 3 device on your end.
On your end,
And then
so-
what you do is you'll route that through.
Gotcha. So still, the connection from your site to Amazon would be layer 2, but you'll have layer 3.
But you need a layer 3 device. We thought they were
Sure.
going to hand us a layer 2
Understood.
link to a switch or
Right,
something.
and it would
That's
just
not-
appear as like a B switch or
Correct.
something in VMware. Gotcha, okay. It's still, I think, better than having internet to, or frankly even CEN in the AS path for layer 3 hops. Especially, you know, we'll be able to offer, when I say dedicated, I mean dedicated optical circuits, because we're building through NARIN, a Sienna wavelength platform. So, I mean,
So from
it's,
what Scott, I talked to Scott before this meeting, he actually said that you could technically do a 1 gig right now through AWS. Is that correct? Didn't he say that?
well, maybe through internet too.
Through internet too?
Yeah, so we can certainly, we can terminate a layer 2
1 gig
connection.
only. Right now.
I'm not sure why he's only saying 1 gig. That may be a limitation of internet 2, because basically we have to cross-connect your port to internet 2, and they have to hand off to Amazon. I'm not sure why the limitation on 1 gig. That may be a protection.
Okay.
But that's interesting.
I didn't say that. Or somebody else that looked like me.
It's in the works, absolutely, absolutely. But Microsoft, I mean, I hate to talk bad, but their sales are the worst. I mean, they're truly horrible.
I'll do that.
We have a Microsoft cache, which we've had since last year, and they told us that they expected at least, 4, 5, 6 gigs a second to come out of that. It literally does like 500 megs a second.
Yeah.
It's because they have, the only thing they have on there, they admittedly said, is Windows updates. And that's it. They don't have Office 365 stuff on there, they don't have Xbox stuff on there, they don't have, and they said by this year they would have everything that they have done. I think they're focusing on direct peerage now, more than cache appliances.
Sure.
Facebook does both. I just put a Facebook cache in last week, it should be up this week, so that'll be interesting to see how much Facebook traffic goes through here. But their thing will probably do a couple of gigs, at least.
I'm curious to know how many people here have had, I can ask this question because Global Knock is not in the room, but how many people here have had to place calls into our knock? Okay, actually that's surprising. Thought it would be more. Are there any services that you guys kind of wish our knock would provide more than, yeah? DNS filtering, interesting, okay. And out of curiosity, like why not just use OpenDNS? Interesting. Huh.
I thought you just threw in there two DNS borders, and that was it.
Yeah.
I guess not.
To be legitimate.
That's okay.
But we did have a case where a customer was using Google, 8888, and which was a little interesting because they still had their own Active Directory, but instead of using root hints, and if you know the difference between that, I can talk about that, after, but they instead just forwarded right to Google, and Google will rate limit. They found that out because of various connectivity issues with all their Chromebooks. We're making investments in our own Infoblox DNS grid, both for authoritative, hosting your own domains with us, as well as recursive lookups. In the past we have tried the DNS filtering in a very limited pilot. It didn't work well with Infoblox.
It's called RPZ by Infoblox.
Yeah.
But the second we turned it on, the CPU on all of our boxes went from like 3% to like 80%.
Yeah.
No.
So it's one of those things, at CEN, when we deploy a service, we try and deploy it so that any member can take advantage of it without any extra cost. We don't like to come up with custom solutions for each person. So that one will be interesting. With our new appliances, we'll see if we can re-examine that service.
Does Infoblox have any kind of tendency, like you've had experimenting with firewalls, right? So have sort of shared models of that. Is there anything like that in the IPX management space where we just can't afford Infoblox ourselves, but it's kind of a gold standard if we're going to try to do something like that?
Our service is listed.
Oh yeah, sorry, on the DNS side, yeah, I meant the whole, like, everything that Infoblox provides.
What we do is, it does have IP management built. I could almost just link your account to be able to do IP management.
That's what I'm wondering, if we can, because we're having to manage it ourselves.
But then we'd have to probably create a different, what do you mean by your internal, like your private address, to keep it all in?
Or when we get V6 turned up, that's public, I mean, it's all public.
Yeah.
So, because as we're starting to think about V6, we're realizing that we need a much better management.
Do you have a DNS management account with us or no?
No, I mean, I basically, you slave off of us, so we publish, we do.
Oh, you're the, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, if you were on ours, you can, anyone that has an account, can go in and they have access to the reverse records, the forward records, the IP records, and all the DNS records.
Okay.
So if you were to move to it,
Do you get like API level access?
yeah, we have one, there's
Yes.
one person that asked for that and got it, and is doing something with the API.
Okay.
I don't even know what he's doing.
No, that's good to know.
The problem, though, I can foresee with that is you may not, like if you do have private addressing assigned, you may not want that visible in DNS.
Right, I realize that probably,
Yeah.
I'm thinking more on the V6 side.
Okay.
especially.
Yeah.
And public facing, like CCSU cut over to us for all their public facing stuff. Southern Fighting cut over to us in a couple of months for all the public
Should I
facing
contact
stuff.
you for that account?
Please contact the service desk at cceducation.net. Just call Scott. But I'll make it.
Is there anyone, who else is using IPAM solutions in their network?
Tell us all about your success.
Yeah, are you using, what are you using? Okay. Anyone else different? Yeah.
Blue Cat.
Blue Cat, okay. Anything else? Infoblox, okay. So GlobalNock actually provides IP address management services. We don't take advantage of those, primarily because we use Infoblox, and we didn't see the need to having the data in two separate places, but that might be a possibility as well. And that would be more, I mean, my goal is to have user login portals through GlobalNock for everyone, and you can see all of your services at a glance. Are the SLAs being met? That's going to take some time, to get there, but I'd be interested to know if, that was something that was an interest for people. I mean, does that sound intriguing?
Definitely.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to be working with them to turn up those types of things. I have a separate presentation. Is there anyone here going to session 17, which is the benefits of CEN conference? Does anyone think about going to that? Okay. I know I'm doing a specific talk on a very small portion of that on DDoS, but is there anyone here who hasn't gotten hit by a DDoS? And sorry, I don't mean to jinx you.
Like
That's pretty impressive. That was a very, very small section of the room raising their hands. Yeah. So that's one thing, right? I mean, you see your connection go down and you don't understand what's happening. You know, oh darn, it's CEN down again, right? I mean, that's like my worst fear, right? Is that people just don't understand what's happening. But definitely, it's become an issue this year. We've seen a dramatic increase in it, and it's hard to say exactly what it is. Many times people come to us and say, just fix it. And I understand where they're coming from, especially when your network is down and you rely on it. We're moving towards a managed or a service offering for DDoS mitigation. I'll talk about that in session 17. It's still in beta right now. But one thing I just wanted to mention to people, if you are under attack, consider contacting law enforcement. Highly consider it. And many people think, yeah, you know, who do I contact? The local police, they're not going to do anything. That's not necessarily true, and we have some contacts on the FBI that they may not be able to be of immediate assistance, but it's important that these attacks are reported. Oh, really? Okay. Is Shelton Public Schools here? Okay, so Shelton, this isn't uncommon. Sometimes when a member gets attacked, they get attacked repeatedly. And we don't have any real visibility as to why the attack is occurring. You know, we see the attack come in, we can tell through net flow, you know, it's distributed, but we don't understand the motive behind it. So I recommended that they contact law enforcement. And so they did, and they ended up talking with the FBI and Shelton Police, who actually has a good IT resource there. You know, you would think the local towns aren't equipped, but you know, I guess they are. In any event, they actually found a suspect. They had evidence on the person's computer. This person was doing, I guess, almost like DDoSes for hire for various people around the state.
Not just Shelton, random
right?
schools here and there. 16-year-old kid.
Oh, interesting. And the price goes up.
So the big ones don't last that long because they're expensive. So.
But it only takes 5 to 10 minutes, right, to disrupt an online test. It doesn't take much time to ruin one of those. So in any event, if nothing else, contacting law enforcement can be an advantage because if the actors, if they are inside actors, you know, are aware that law enforcement is involved, it can have a chilling effect. So maybe they, you know, stop doing what they're doing just because they know an investigation may be ongoing. So in any event, please take that into consideration. Contact law enforcement. One of the biggest issues that we faced was, you know, people tell me, you know, this is terrible. DDoS is ruining our network. You know, this is a big issue. And I said, it's great to hear you say that. We need to get the word out to the people at the state government. If you're a K-12, you know, especially, we need to get the word out so we can secure that funding to make it a priority. Because oftentimes these are being escalated to the right people. I get the sense that in some cases it's being kept within a certain number of people in the district. And if they don't know about the problem and they don't know how serious it is, then they're not going to devote any resources to it. So, but we'll have more on that, you know, a little bit later. Hope to have a really good demo on that. So,
not to spoil that future session, but
yeah.
Do you imagine that the DDoS services will be built into the standard ISP costs? Or
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Two.
Well, yeah. So we can talk about this a little bit. So there's going to be different tiers of how the service works. There'll be an automatic, mitigation component where we can mitigate up to a certain level of traffic. I can't disclose that right now, but I can talk about it after the fact, one-on-one. And basically, it's a licensing issue.
I'm just trying to figure out if I can secure funding for that.
Yeah, it really depends on how much volume and what resources you're trying to protect are. If you fit within, right now, the 99% of the attacks that we see are sub 10 gig.
1 to 5.
You know, and occasionally, you know, we get attacks that are a lot bigger. We had an incident where a university was under a 30 gigabit DDoS attack. And most likely our standard service offering would not be able to mitigate a 30 gigabit DDoS attack automatically. Now the second tier, if that happens, is the way it should work is you would call us and we'd be able to apply some mitigation upstream depending on the attack so that we're not completely black holing traffic. We're selectively, you know, firewalling, I guess you could say, the attack match, you know, whatever it's matching the attack. And then, but the third tier, if the attack gets over, let's say, you know, if it gets between 60, 80, you know, gigabits per second, you know, at that level, I mean, that's definitely, you're in a league on your own at that point. There's ways we could potentially work with our upstreams to mitigate it, but it's not going to be as cut and dry, I guess you could say. But if you're looking to just protect like a web server, I mean, has anyone here leveraged Cloudflare? For there? Okay. So that's one option. Just offload your web services to Cloudflare. We'll also potentially have an option if we do go with Arbor. That's who we're currently evaluating. We'll have an option where we could potentially reroute your network into Arbor. If there was a large enough attack. Where that becomes a problem is K-12, in order to reroute a section of addresses on the internet, it needs to be a minimum /24 address size. If you have an address size that's more specific, and most K-12s do, the problem with that is we have to, it doesn't matter, we have to reroute that addressing along with whatever other addressing falls within that /24. And of course, there could be a lot more traffic on that. So we have to work out some of those details, but I think we're going to have a pretty good offering, you know, for people, especially for the people that fit within that 99% attack, you know, situation. And there's some other stuff right now. If you have a larger address space, we support BGP black hole communities. You have to contact us so we can work that out. It's not an automatic thing we turn up. Right. For any higher ed that does do BGP, that's and is interested in black hole. Let us know.
Actually, I'm interested in other people's opinions because in terms of mitigating DDoS attacks against, say, our university, I'm not so much concerned about preserving our basic web pages. I'm more concerned that I've got thousands of students who need access to cloud services in order to improve their education, making sure that they have access to the resources that they need versus keeping a static web page.
Right. And then in that case, the black hole community might be a good solution for you, right? I mean, I know other universities in the Northeast that are connected in Massachusetts recently have used that on those networks. Other people, it's very important that they're front-facing, you know, pages. That is the business requirement. And yeah, so in any event, stay tuned, you know, on that service, and I'm more than happy to take any other questions on that, certainly. But very excited to get that service into production.
And on that front, do you have any way, since you're a much larger provider than we are, of sharing any kind of information that we can use? Any kind of black hole information, anything at all, firewall, I think you're providing, you may have more information, not firewall, but you know, do you have any statistics or any other automated information that you can leverage on where you're seeing traffic on our end? So we might want to automatically block or
Setting the peak
So that's a good question.
Maybe thinking like CNC stuff, for box, and any of these kinds of things that we can be flagging locally, we just don't have enough
Yeah.
ability to see that stuff.
There's some talk about having more information security sharing. I don't know really if you're talking about something specifically tailored to your network though, or you're
No,
talking in
just
general?
Like, CEN has noticed the following list of terrible actors on the internet today.
Oh yeah, unfortunately, because of the way this is distributed, that list ever changing and it's full of thousands and thousands and thousands of different issues.
There are some resources we can get you in contact with. So on internet too, there's the REN-ISAC, Research Education Network, security, whatever. But they basically monitor, they have intelligence from other people on compromised hosts, and they do levels of malware analysis, and they will alert us when there's compromises on the network. And if you've ever, we've forwarded a REN-ISAC notification. There's another push by the state to have kind of a working group where we can share, and it's really not us sharing because we don't have that information, but there's other organizations on the state level and federal level with Homeland Security that have access to those threats. The problem with some of those is there's a certain amount of vetting that has to happen in some cases. Yeah, right. Because they just don't let any schmo, you know.
Yeah, we give you some Joe Schmo off the street, sorry.
So. So we have about 5 minutes, I think. Was there any like pressing things? I mean, I don't mind this turning into you know, complaint session towards the end now. But is there anything really that's anyone on people's minds? You know, we try and take member feedback into consideration seriously. It's a community network, so yeah. Free threat feeds?
Yeah, like, I know that there's a big market for threat feeds, but interesting to see if there's any competition. Maybe not a zero-day threat feed, but something.
That'd be really interesting. I would think those are the things that Palo Alto holds very close to their chest for, you know, market advantage. Yeah, but I will research that for you.
REN-ISAC was trying to do that. I don't know if it succeeded. About 6 months ago, they were trying to get education customers together to review that information.
We had an issue for about 8 months where they stopped sending them because their equipment all got hacked. The people were sick of it, I guess, calling out people, so they told me, yeah, they're all the equipment that's getting done, all got compromised and stuff. But they're sending them again. I get it security.
Yeah, it's the REN-ISAC security event system.
Is anyone here using Palo Alto? Yeah. Must be nice to have that for money. That's what everyone else is thinking. Oh, really? You use the virtual firewalls? Do you mind sharing, like, how much is it roughly? I mean, right.
Support cost was somewhere around $50,000 a year.
Can you tell me who's going to be selling you that cheap?
I actually have this through, I can tell you offline.
I know.
It wasn't the full speed though.
All right, yeah.
So we actually, it's not well known, but we do firewalling services for the State Department of Education, the vocational schools. It was kind of a one-off in the history of CEN that was passed from generation to generation. But there's been some interest in CEN providing managed firewall service, and that's something that I've been exploring. currently I've been beta testing a managed firewall service using Fortinet. If that was of interest to people, I'm kind of curious. It sounds to me from the feedback I've gotten, they really want to have the intrusion prevention service attached to it. I mean, they don't just want a plain vanilla firewall, and that is kind of where the extra cost is. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure, I would not need a managed firewall service, but having another layer of an IPS,
Okay.
ISP, is more valuable.
So really, just you're talking about it as almost like an infrastructure as a service.
Yeah.
Like you don't need us to manage it. You just want it off of your premise. Just something that's available that you don't have to deal with, basically, as an asset.
With all the FireEyes, the various IPS, IDS implementations on Palo Alto, being able to pull our resources and actually put a large implementation on the ISP, that's everything.
Yeah, so that's one thing I've been looking at is right now we have it Fortinet using their virtual domains, which is right into the ASIC on their dedicated appliance. But the virtual firewalls is something I'm really interested in, and I think the main limitation on that, I believe, is Palo Alto. Is it a 1 gig limit for throughput? Okay, and that I think for many people, might be sufficient. Others not. So that being said, I mean, I'm certainly available afterwards, I think, unless yeah, 2:45. So I'm available afterwards. I'll be around for any questions, and if you guys have any specific things you want to, ask me about. But thank you so much for coming in and sharing your experiences.